Good evening. With no majority in Parliament and anger within her own party over aspects of universal credit, there was pressure on the Prime Minister today to change tack. She didn't, except on making the helpline a free phone number. She's sticking to the policy. But in a non-binding vote on it this evening in the Commons, the government was rather less resolute. Perhaps fearing defeat, it ordered its MPs not to vote on it at all. That provoked a row about abusing the parliamentary rules. More on that from Robert Peston in a moment. So then the rollout of universal credit, criticised for the delays in payments which have left many families in debt, will go ahead as planned.
Manchester is one of the next cities the rollout of universal credit will hit. But this revolt is threatening to slow down the most significant welfare reform in half a century. Some here have already switched to universal credit. Stephen has received no money since the move a month ago. Chronically depressed, his bedsit bills are mounting, his stress and debt levels rising. Friends have brought him food.
You're already in a much worse situation than you were when you made the claim, and I think it'll be very difficult to get out of that spiral. So that worry, that lack of hope, and just to actually feel awful and to feel useless.
Universal credit was first piloted 4 years ago, and the national rollout's now underway. By 2018, all new claimants will receive it. It combines 6 individual benefits into one single monthly payment. More than 600,000 people are now on it, yet almost a quarter of them had to wait more than 6 weeks for their first payment.
Prime Minister!
But amid calls for a halt to the rollout, the Prime Minister insisted major expansion would go ahead.
It's a simpler system. It's a system that encourages people to get into the workplace. It is a system that is working because more people are getting into work.
There is a very long list of people urging the Prime Minister to pause universal credit, including the Citizens Advice Bureau, the Trussell Trust, John Major, and I understand 24 of our own backbenchers.
And some of those Tory backbenchers were ready to speak out and be counted ahead of an opposition vote.
If we want universal credit to really replicate the world of work, payments must be built around a 4-week cycle. Removing the initial 7-day wait must be the very least we can do.
Why are we undermining a policy with the potential to change lives for the better? And by not addressing a fundamental flaw at its heart.
But when it came to the symbolic vote, none of the Tories broke rank, all abstaining, but they'd made their concerns clear. As have others. The Citizens Advice say they've been flooded with calls from thousands of people concerned about the delays in payment when they switch over to universal credit. But they have welcomed today's news that the government advice line will now be free.
We are really pleased that that cost has now been removed for people and that they'll be able to get support from making their claim for free. However, we obviously are still concerned with problems in the system.
With growing calls for a pause to the national rollout, the question is, are these teething problems or fundamental flaws in a system that disadvantages the vulnerable? This ambitious welfare reform has been plagued by setbacks from the start, but the government insists it will press on and that it works. Claimants like Stephen disagree, and now this revolt in the Tory ranks shows that concern about aspects of this welfare reform is spreading. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Manchester.
Our political editor, Robert Peston, joins me now. Labour won that vote tonight, but will it make any difference at all?
I don't think so. Universal credit, this streamlining of a number of working age benefits into a single benefit, is one of the Conservatives' absolutely flagship policies. It's been in development for years. They think it'll encourage people to go back to work if they're unemployed, and it'll also save the government quite a lot of money. And their fear is if they cave in to demands for a delay in the rollout, that'll be effectively the beginning of the end. And for a government that faces problems on all fronts, caving in on this, I think they regard as too much of a humiliation.
One Labour MP described Theresa May tonight as a Prime Minister in office but not in power.
Yeah, well, you know, there are certainly manifestations of how weakened she was by that general election where she lost the party's overall majority. She did tonight what they've been threatening to do for some time, which is on Labour motions simply not turn up, in the hope that people would regard their absence as somehow undermining the validity of the vote. But the Speaker of the House of Commons, John Bercow, has made it absolutely clear that the Tories lost, and is actually being rather cross with the government for pretending that somehow these votes don't matter. Now, on another front, another sign of weakness is that they've had to delay the next stage of debating this really important European Union withdrawal bill, probably the most important legislation we'll see in this Parliament, which is all about preparing the ground for Brexit. And the reason she's delayed it is because there's been a ton of amendments, some of them from her own MPs, which she doesn't like and she can't be certain of defeating. Tomorrow we get the start of the European Union summit, which will discuss Brexit, but actually the negotiation which is much more important for her right now is persuading her own MPs and indeed her own cabinet ministers to back her own vision of Brexit. This is a Prime Minister facing challenges on all sides.
Robert Peston, thank you.